Want to do better? Then it's time to change the story. Welcome to our show about new visions currently transforming the world through the confluence of art, tech, and innovation. And now your hosts, Michael Ashley and Neil Sahota.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Changing the Story. We've got a fabulous guest and a great friend of mine, Danny May. He's a global AI tech entrepreneur and industry speaker who founded Lingmo, a digitally AI-powered translation software provider, despite having no IT or AI background. His idea was to develop a real-time language translation solution to break down the global language barrier. And it came about after an embarrassing situation in China. So I'll let Danny tell that part of the story. But Danny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on.
Now you got a fascinating life story, and I know that because we're great friends. But kind of alluding that in the intro here, because you actually by trade are a plumber, and now somehow you're this amazing, cutting-edge AI tech entrepreneur. What is your origin story?
Correctly. I'm fully qualified plumber. As you alluded to in the intro, that the story how I become a tech entrepreneur was I was contracted to do plumbing work for a company here in Sydney, and I had to go to China and find hot water products. And literally 4 hours after landing, my passport was stolen. So I went up to a police officer, and he was just on the street, and I downloaded they're now a competitor's app onto my phone, and said 4 words, hello, how are you? Into it. I thought I'd make, small talk just to get the conversation going. Come out and translated, hello, I love you. So the small talk went straight out the window, and it got pretty tense. Long story short, after me attempting a few more times with bad translation, the police officer seen I was not, having a go anymore, and I'm not making fun, and I was legitimately trying. He, was cooperative with me then. From that, it's come back and did some market research on the language translation industry, and found, where the discrepancies were, how, same 4 words, 50% of them were wrong, and founded Lingmo.
Wow. Well, that was a harrowing experience. Glad you're all right, obviously. But that's quite the motivator to become an entrepreneur. I mean, what kind of clicked in your mind here? Did you just suddenly say like, hey, you know what, I want to solve this problem, I'm going to drop everything? Or did you ever think about being an entrepreneur before?
Yeah, I thought about it before, and there was just, I had a couple of, sort of startups that I started, before Lingmo. I had the wrong mindset at that point in time. The mindset was I started, a photo sharing where you could change the fonts and text on photos. Founded that company because Instagram sold to Facebook for $1 billion. So I started a company for the money. But where the real entrepreneur journey come from was back still when I was doing plumbing. My boss at the time, he was my first mentor. He really wanted me to go into and go to Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins event. And I was literally 17, 18 at the time. And it was $3,000 for a ticket. So I'm sitting there thinking, I don't want to spend $3,000 on a ticket. I'd rather go out on a holiday or go on the drink with the friends. You got your priorities set there. So literally after 3 years of Andy Robbins coming over, my boss just finally gave me and goes, I want you to go, I'll pay for you. So then I went there, and one thing that really set in my mind from that event was, Tony had a story of when he was, I think he was skiing in Colorado or something with an associate, and his associate, before they got on the chairlift, he goes, I've got something to tell you at the top of this chairlift. They got to the chairlift, Tony goes, okay, got to the top of the chairlift, and the associate goes, I just made $100,000. Tony goes, dude, how did you do that? He goes, well, I created a business where I don't need to be there day in, day out. And it's, it's built to scale. And from that really stuck in my mind. That's where the entrepreneur journey started. Being a plumber, I had to physically be there pretty much all the time. Even you have your own business, you got to be there. And that's where the entrepreneurial journey really started.
That's incredible, but it sounds like, you learned some sort of lesson here because you said, thinking about the billions of dollars in sales and stuff like that. I assume that venture didn't work out because you're doing Lingmo now. What kind of changed? Did something happen?
Um, yeah, it's I watch you watch a lot of podcasts, motivation videos, and stuff when being an entrepreneur and going through the journey, and it's Steve Jobs says it, everyone says it. You've got to be passionate about what you do. If you're doing it for the money, when times get tough, especially now during COVID, there's a lot of tough times. You want to just pack in the bag and take your bat and ball and go home. You don't want to continue with it. But if you're passionate about it, so for me, with the issue that I had in China, I was passionate about it because communication. For Lingmo, communication is the key. Whether you're in one language or multiple languages. And when you can't communicate with someone and you feel lost, you have that sinking feeling in your stomach and your heart. So that's kind of where what the differentiating point is now from the other company I started to now is we're passionate about the project, not thinking about money. The money will come in the end, but it's about getting through the processes and step by step. And another key thing that I learned was in the photo sharing company. I put all my hard-earned money into it and stuff, and then people said, oh, they want to come in, they'll put X amount in, but they want 40% of the company. And you just go, and you're young, you go in your head, you go, no, I've put all this money in, why would I do that? But now you go, you give something away to add value to you and your team, and that's how you grow.
Yeah. Would you rather own 100% of a $1 million company or 10% of a $1 billion company?
Exactly. That's the mindset. So I had to have a mindset change. And I've done a few keynotes and speaking events where I've had young people come up after me, and that's probably the one biggest tip that I give them, because they always say the same thing that I did. I'm going, dude, I said the same thing that you did, 5 years, 10 years ago. Give something away to add value to you, and you'll see yourself grow.
Look, I couldn't agree more. And, as a lot of people know, I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs over the years, and I see a lot of people that they have great ideas. I believe everyone has $1 billion idea, but so many people say like, well, I don't know the business side, or I don't know finance, and maybe I should really get a job and try and do some of these things for 3, 4 years and understand. Well, it's like you just learn bad habits, right?
Yeah.
The best entrepreneurs, like you said, they're passionate, they just do it. I mean, I'm assuming as a plumber, you didn't exactly come in saying like, I know how to read financial statements or do a go-to-market strategy. So, I mean, how do you make that leap in, right? So you're starting Lingmo, you're like, I'm all in on this. What are the things you first had to learn?
I guess with being a plumber in Australia, it's a 7-8 year course. So one of the courses you have to do before you get your license is actually a business degree. So I think what happened in the early days, it used to be mandatory when I did it. Nowadays it's not, but I think they're starting to bring it back in, because in the early days when it wasn't mandatory and people didn't do it, that people were going off and starting businesses and they're going broke because they didn't know how to, balance up a balance sheet. They didn't know how to set accounts up, and it gave you that sort of. It wasn't about plumbing; it was about general business. So, in relation to that, I found that really helpful because I had to do that. The thing that with starting Lingmo, what I really had to focus on was the tech. Self-teaching myself, I'm dyslexic, so reading books and manuals and stuff is really difficult for me. So I'm a real visual learner. So I had to, we assembled a great team of developers who really work with me. They work with me now, but in the early days, I asked a lot of stupid questions, put it that way. And a lot of people come up to me and say, I say, sorry, this might be a stupid question. And you can know the people that want to help you and that don't, because I say it to some people now, sorry, this is a stupid question. And they come back and say, there's never a stupid question if you learn something. But then if someone comes and goes, yeah, well, probably is a stupid question, you kind of know what answer you're going to get may not be beneficial to you. So in the early days, it was learning the tech to differentiate ourselves. So in the early days when we partnered with IBM, where I was fortunate enough to meet yourself, Neil, that I didn't tell IBM for like the people we're dealing with in America here in Australia, probably would have been for a year, that I used to be a plumber, because I didn't want them seeing the tech built by a plumber. I wanted them to see the tech for what it was. So I kind of we said a little, not white lies. I just didn't inform them of my background. Everyone has a background. Because I just didn't want the tech being jeopardized for, a plumber created this, it's not going to be any good. So I built the conferences up, and then I actually didn't tell them. I don't know how they found out. Somehow they found out, and then next there was a big press release that went out and it went massive around the world. So in the early days, it was learning about the tech.
That's good, but I mean, it's a powerful story. Like I said, I think people don't realize that. Oh, I don't know tech, or I don't know business. A lot of people find reasons to say no to something, and it's like you don't need to know that. But I also get the stigma. I mean, I unfortunately hear this a lot, especially in certain areas I won't name, about, well, if you're not a technologist or you're not from those areas, how good could you really be? And I think it's a really poor association to make. There's talent everywhere. There's great ideas everywhere, but the idea by itself is worthless. It's all about the drive and the execution. That's where you need good people, good team. And I'm really, it's unfortunate that we have to, you had to do kind of well, I'll tell you a little more about my background later. Let me show you the tech first.
Yeah, I've done a sort of ask about it. I've gone, let's focus on the tech. But exactly what you said is 100% right. If I told everyone that I was a plumber and we're from Australia, the stigma's straight away. It's there. So we let the tech do all the talking, then found out, and people use that as a drive. It's when I do a lot of speaking now where, motivational people to go from one industry to another. Anyone, as you said, anyone can go from one industry to another. It's about your commitment, your drive, your execution, and you're going to get a lot of people. It could be family, friends, associates saying you don't, that's not for you. I've had a couple of people in the early days when I was doing plumbing. I went out to everyone's house, so I sort of gave them the idea of what was going on, and I'll never forget. I went to a guy's house to, out of all things, clear a block toilet. It's probably that's the worst thing that you could do. Told him he was in the tech business. He goes, mate, you should stay in your own lane. I said, what does that mean? And he goes, leave tech up to people like me. You stay to plumbing. And funnily enough, he tried to clear his own block toilet. And I said, well, that's got to work the reverse way around. You clean your own toilet now. I'll go off and do the tech. So I kind of, went through that phase. But it's, it's a lot of naysayers. It's commitment, but it's you got to work twice as hard as everyone else if you change industries, and you got to be prepared to do that.
Well, for sure. Well, I know that you've done some amazing things with Lingmo, right? Maybe you could share with the audience what makes Lingmo so special, because I'm sure they're wondering, isn't there a lot of translation tools out there? I mean, what has Danny done?
Yeah. So what makes, in the early days, what we found was the issue that I had from trying to want to come back. The competitors did the translation part perfect. So that was perfect. Where they actually failed, and it took someone from outside the tech industry, where they didn't have blinkers on to work this out, was the speech recognition. If your speech input isn't correct, the rest of the translation snowballs. So you've got different dialects, you've got ambient noises, you've got someone mumbling, you've got all these various points. So what we've done is we've partnered with leading institutions to use their artificial intelligence, Microsoft, IBM, and others, where we really hone in and perfect the speech recognition side for the voice to voice, but also the contextual side. So when you're speaking or someone else is speaking, it doesn't do literal translation. It does it contextually, so you understand what's going on. Because there's nothing worse than you hearing it in English and you go, I kind of get what that dude's saying, but I kind of don't. And I've got to, especially in a business negotiation, that could be the key for signing the deal or not signing the deal. So that's a key, differentiating point. And the other thing that we do really well is, we partner with the right people. We know we do language translation, perfect. We're one of the leaders in the world, but we partner with other organizations to add benefits to our solution as for enterprises or maybe in the consumer side. And we're really starting to see that growth now, more so in the enterprise side. We've done deals with Zoom, Telefonica of late, so who really see the beneficial side of what we do and how we train it. Our algorithms are set a little, we'll say, out of the box for the training side. And another beneficial side of us, what we do in the business side is we can train it for industry specific terminology. So for an airline, for example, they have different terminology to what a hotel was. So not one solution does all.
Wow. So recognizing accent dialect, because I totally get that. I asked Siri, what's the Yankee score? And it's telling me they calling the yarn store. So it's great you recognize
Yeah.
dialect and accent, contextual translations, so like slang, idiom. It learns so you can train it specific vocabulary. But I'm really curious here because you're talking about Zoom and Telefonica. These are some really big, well-known companies, right? Why are they getting involved with Lingmo? I mean, they must see something special here.
Yeah, they do. These companies have done 6, 12 months of testing of our solutions or our software to make sure when we obviously announce we're doing partnerships and stuff that our brand goes against their brand. Their brands, they don't jeopardize anything for their brand. So they see the key differentiating points I mentioned before: the nuanced dialect recognition, industry specific, especially for these companies, is a big thing. Key. For if they go to with Telefonica, we've done a deal with Melia Hotels in Spain. So we're running our solutions within a proof of concept Melia Hotel in one of their flagship hotels starting at the end of the year. So that has different terminology. You've got different, they've got keynote presentations that have different terminology so we can train it on the fly. The thing that we learned early on was, the go-to-market strategy. We started off as consumer-based. So my focus when I started the company was consumer, because I had the problem when I was traveling. But that space is very, very congested. You've got the big players that can give their software away for free. We had big companies, airlines, and coffee chains come to us and ask if they could use our software into their organization. We could, but we had to rebuild it to scale it to suit the enterprise. And we kept on getting more of these coming. So what we did was we pivoted 18 months ago to really focus on our business side, to redo the software, to make it scalable on to enterprises. And we're starting to see the growth there now. And I guess one of the key points is we go in, we fix one problem for these organizations, then we add value with other ones as they see the confidence in us. So they do their testing on the software, they make sure it's all above board, everything's compliant, which everything is, the accuracy is there. Then we go through the process of working out who the key clients are and what problems we can fix to start off with, fix those problems, and then move from there.
That is awesome. I mean, you don't hear about startup companies getting such opportunities. I think that really shows you got something special going on and the value. And like I personally know, having traveled around the world many times, that typically we think about translation, good enough is usually all right. And if you're like on vacation, it probably is okay. But when it comes to things, especially like business, man, a small misinterpretation could cause a lot of havoc. Like I remember when I lived in China, we had some colleagues come from the States and they were working with, some Chinese potential clients, and they were having something wrong. So they asked me one time to come in to help talk about like AI, and they're off talking about cloud first, and you could tell something was not right, right? And so finally, it just kind of dawned on me. And so I asked the translator, and I asked her, when they're saying cloud, do you know what they're talking about? And she looked at me and she got all angry and she's like, I'm not an idiot. I know what a cloud is. It's the things up in the sky. I'm like, that's actually not what they're talking about.
there lies the problem. So it's a common thing, as you said. It's if someone's traveling, they can get away with 60% because they may get a wrong flavored drink or the wrong meal. But in a business sense, it could be the point of signing $1 million deal to not sign it, but just because of communication. It's the key. It's what everyone needs to do to do business. And especially now with COVID, it's everything's done cross border. So our software works cross border. As just as effective as if you're face to face. So I guess that's the real key point here. That it's it's about giving back to the companies and also the employees or whoever may be using it to be able to communicate with their customers freely. And I guess another thing to point out is we get asked all the time, oh, with your software, it's going to make interpreters null and void. And go, well, it's not. What we're here is we've got the solution here to help enable them, make it easier for them to be able to communicate. So, at the UN, they may, instead of swapping and changing, they may be able to read off the screen instead of really listen to what's being said, and they can get their time frame done longer. So there's so many different things. It's not about taking jobs. It's about using the software to enable people to communicate, whether it's for interpretation or business communication.
I think people don't realize what a big challenge that is. I mean, you work in a multinational company, you get into these weird communication kind of gaffes all the time because of the different languages. And most people think, oh, shouldn't everyone like speak one language? Or it's like, I can tell you, like even the airlines, like I can't name names, but I had a very large airline carrier group as a client once, and you just think even about Europe, right?
Yeah.
The people in Spain are speaking Spanish, the people in France are speaking French, the people in Italy are speaking Italian, right? They're not all speaking the common language. And you think about just even the jargon, you don't want miscommunication. Bad things could happen. You're talking about lives at risk.
That's it. Yeah. And I know a different airline, which I won't name as well. But, I met with them and they said our staff are multilingual. And I've just gone, okay, well, I suggest you get on a flight from Shanghai to Sydney and you see how multilingual they really are, because they can't communicate. So it's just about enabling people to communicate. That's the whole focus around the business. That's what we're passionate about.
Well, that's fantastic. Any chance that you'll have a translation capability, so when I speak to my better half, she knows what I'm saying, or I understand what she's saying?
Yeah. So we're doing that now, and we're also doing the drunken translation. So if someone's drunk, that's a lot of work in that one. So I'm trying to test that out for the team, and see how we work it. But yeah, we're working on that now.
Do the significant other one. I think there's a huge audience of us out there.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, on this incredible journey you've been on, Danny, I mean, I know there's lots of people entrepreneurs that are learning things the hard way, even leaders. Like, I've worked with a lot of global Fortune 500 companies. They struggle with some of the same challenges like entrepreneurs do. So in your journey, like, what's the advice you would give to people? Like, if you're just a leader of any company, based on what you learn, what would you tell them?
What I've learned is, bring the right people in at the right time to the company, because they will help grow your business and make your job a lot easier. It's if you're going from one industry, if you're a founder, you're going from one industry to another, be prepared to hear the word no a lot. And I guess the biggest thing that I say is be comfortable being uncomfortable, because when you're doing it, you're a startup founder, you're an entrepreneur. If you're in your comfort zone, you're not in the right place. It's as simple as that. So if you're in your comfort zone, then you might be able to be in your comfort zone for a couple of months while you're building the software out and stuff like that. But then, if you're not comfortable in cold calling people, you've got to cold call people so you can try and sell your software. So it's being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and it's never sort of giving up. I guess that's the biggest thing is you're passionate. Do something that you're passionate about, because then you'll persevere to see it through, and that way you won't give up through the hard times. And I think right now with COVID, that's a big thing for a lot of people. Is a lot of things get hard, and business models, and especially during COVID, they say start a business during through a downturn, because then you can see if people are willing to pay for it when the money's tight, then you'll get through it. So I guess they're the tips that I give.
That's great advice. I actually, when I teach entrepreneurship, I always tell them that here's your comfort zone, and outside is this other bubble, and that's where the magic actually happens. So you got to step out your comfort zone to get there.
Exactly. One thing that I wasn't comfortable doing was keynoting. So I got, mentored to do keynoting presentations in front of thousands of people. And it's helped the business, it's helped everything. So it's as you said, getting out of your little bubble and getting into the little bubble that's over on the right or left hand side, and being in the uncomfortable spot, because that's where the magic happens.
Well, that's fantastic advice. And plus, do things that are hard, or even if you don't like them. We Another guest on the show, Elijah Stacy, whose mantra was "Do things that suck."
Yeah.
And it's like
I like that one.
That's where the secret sauce actually is.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take that one from now on. I like that.
Well, Danny, this has been fascinating. If people want to learn more about you, about Lingmo, what's the best way to connect?
To learn about Lingmo and the products that we do, jump on lingmointernational.com. We've got everything on there from our products that we do on Zoom, our ones that are for live chats, custom built for organizations. If you want to, connect with me, the best spot is LinkedIn. So jump on my LinkedIn, Danny May, and, friend me there, and happy to answer any questions and help people through the journey.
Awesome. Well, Danny, thank you for sharing your story of becoming a plumber to AI entrepreneur. A fantastic advice and helping us all be better communicators.
Thanks for having me. Neil.
Hey, my pleasure.
Hey, if you like today's show, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment.
If you've been enjoying the Changing the Story podcast series, please subscribe and share it with your friends.
Thank you.